Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is Darin McBratney. Darin McBratney is a plant medicine facilitator, and you can find out more about Darin McBratney and his wonderful work at his website, ibogatherapy.com. Welcome, Darin McBratney.
Thank you, Catherine.
So Darin McBratney, you've worked for many years with the strongest plant medicine in the world, Iboga. What exactly is Iboga?
Iboga is a plant, a member of the dogbane family, which is the same family as coffee. So it's a shrub. It grows in equatorial Africa and in Ghana, in Congo, in Cameroon, and primarily in Gabon. So it's a plant that's the pygmies have been using for thousands of years. When the French invaded that part of Africa, people were driven into the forest where they met the pygmy people and started using this sacred plant. And they started a tradition out of it called buitui. And which I have really nothing to do with all of that. I kind of have my own methods, but that's what Iboga is primarily. You can read all about Iboga. I want to just plug our new book here that I funded and Daniel Brett wrote called Iboga, the Root of All Healing. It's available on Amazon. And this book is the most comprehensive book in the world on Iboga. And we're very, very proud of it.
And for our audience, and we're going to be interviewing Daniel Brett here hopefully soon. So the book is by the author, Daniel Brett, Iboga, the Root of All Healing.
Yes, it's amazing. There's nothing, he wrote that book out of frustration of all the research and information that he did after an experience he had with me facilitating 8 years ago. So this book has been 8 years in the making, but it's absolutely a masterpiece. Yes.
So Darin McBratney, we're in this interview, we're going to be talking about microdosing. And of course, you've been doing plant medicine ceremonies for many years. For our audience, how many years have you been facilitating Iboga ceremonies?
Somewhere around 12 years now. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And what we know is that it takes 10 years to become a master healer. So I would definitely call you a master healer with the plant medicine Iboga. Now, what is the difference between a plant medicine ceremony with Iboga and microdosing Iboga? Because those are two totally different approaches.
Right. Well, I'm a big encourager of anybody coming to do a ceremony to, if it's possible, if all possible, to do microdosing first. Also, microdosing I use for people that I disqualify from a ceremony as it's quite strenuous on your heart and liver. So if there's a indication of someone having problems with their heart or liver, or they're a little fragile, if their chi level's not high enough, if they have some other weaknesses, then of course microdosing is the way to go. And also after the ceremony, sometimes with addiction or some ailments, I don't call that microdosing, I call it booster doses because they've already done the ceremony or have already done the microdosing. So these are considered booster doses for people after they've done, let's say 20 grams or so, which is a treatment. 40 grams if you have an ailment such as cancer or Parkinson's or something like this. I always encourage people to do at least 40 grams.
So for our audience, when you facilitate a plant medicine ceremony with Iboga, what exactly is that like? And how much Iboga on average are people usually taking?
Okay, so a ceremonial dose or a flood dose or a clinical dose, as it's called, is 14 grams of root bark, okay? There's also TA, which is a total alkaloid, which I do not work with. That's you see that more in medical facilities and stuff. I disagree with that method in the fact that I think that source or God put this plant on this earth to be taken as whole. Now, this is the outside of the root bark, and the plant has to be at least 5 years old, optimal conditions to be psychoactive and to heal you. So I think that taking the root bark in its whole form, you're getting the whole spectrum of healing. So that's what I work with. I have worked with TA before. It's effective. It's a smoother ride. It works great, but it's not the full spectrum that this plant has to offer. And I do know this through conversations of the plant with you. I knew this in my mind, but I assured myself when this question was asked with you to the plants and you responding with their answer, which was incredible recordings on the Iboga Therapy site. I encourage you, if anybody really wants to get to know this plant, one should listen to those recordings because it's a panel of us, including Daniel Brett, the author of Iboga, the Root of All Healing, and some other people that I've been working with for years with this plant, asking this plant different questions like, what is your purpose? On and on and on. But you gave us the answers that I always knew to be true and just verified what I've always thought to be true. So
for our audience, I'm a medical intuitive healer, as I mentioned at the beginning in the introduction. And for the past 4 years, I've been doing medical intuitive readings for every client who comes to Darin McBratney to do Iboga. And we do this for several reasons. One is we put together a blueprint for optimal health for every client. And by doing the readings, when people come to Costa Rica to meet Darin, then he knows ahead of time what's going on with that person and the other therapies that are going to be most helpful to help that person achieve their goals of optimal health. And what Darin's referring to was the first time I went to Costa Rica to meet Darin in person in 2018, he asked me to channel the plant, and the plant medicine spoke to me, and we made a number of recordings, which you can listen to at ibogatherapy.com. So we talked about a flood dose being about 14 grams of the root bark. And Darin McBratney, for our audience, what is the TA that you referred to?
The TA refers to total alkaloid, and what scientists have discovered is there's 12 active alkaloids in this plant that are beneficial for your health. I kind of want to get back to the what is a ceremony compared to microdosing. I also wanted to convey that Western medicine is like one size fits all. Everybody's the same. Everybody's the same dose. That's not the case at all. We are all very different. I know this from your readings and how different they are. There's been a whole lot of them. And there is some people out there that will recommend a dose to you of Iboga according to your weight. I disagree with this. I've had NFL football players that are 6'8", 200 or 320 pounds, and a little Filipino lady next to them, and the little Filipino lady took more than the football player. I've had people have full-blown experiences in ceremony on 8 grams, and then I've had some up to 27 grams. So we're all different. And this is my approach. I got into plant medicine through my research after a very bad experience to your experience with Western medicine. So I have a little bit of a disdain for Western medicine. And through my research for many years before I even got into Iboga, I haven't had a television for 30 years. All I do is research. So I was researching every type of healing that wasn't Western. And that's how I came across Iboga originally. But I knew that we are not all the same and we all are different. Even when it comes to microdosing, it's not one size fits all. I have some people that will take 1 000 capsule. I grind this root bark up. I get it whole, scraped off. It's the outside of the root as this bark, and it's scraped off, and I get it, and it kind of looks like sticks of cinnamon. And I grind it up in a commercial grinder, and then I put that, the powder into 00 vegetarian capsules. And that's what we take in ceremony, and that's what we take in microdosing. So some people, I always ask, and this is what's interesting about Iboga too, is not one person's ever been known to have an allergic reaction to this plant, which means it's for everybody, right? Pretty much it's for everybody. You kind of have to have a calling to it, of course, kind of have to resonate with it. But if you do, so it's about your individualism is how much you're going to microdose. I encourage everybody to, the first time they take Iboga, to break the capsule open actually, and to take the powder itself so you can taste it. And I believe that this spawns an enzyme in your body as well that accepts the Iboga better. So I have everybody that I recommend microdosing. Again, what this microdosing does, now it was first introduced into the Western world in France in 1938, and it came in these little canisters that look like, forget those names of those lozenges you have, but anyways, it was called Labradem, and it was suggested to take that for energy, for focus, for clarity, and this is exactly what it gives you. Not only that, but it's the most detoxifying natural agent on the planet. So it's pulling out heavy metals. It's pulling out everything in your body that's not meant to be there. It's quite remarkable this way. It also produces norbogaine when it's processed through your liver. And norbogaine happens to be the most powerful natural antidepressant. So you feel fantastic while you're microdosing. Now, I don't have any what they call in the ayahuasca world dieta, which is a diet. The only thing that I ask people not to ingest is quinine and grapefruit, okay, because it produces an enzyme in the liver that doesn't allow these toxins to process. And I also recommend a liver cleanse, very easy, very inexpensive one. Of course, there's a lot of them, but the one I recommend is anybody who's doing microdosing 3 weeks prior, I recommend, not necessarily during, but 3 weeks prior, I recommend that anybody get some organic olive oil, and you take a teaspoon of this in the morning, you put it in a shot glass, and you squeeze a lemon. And first thing every morning, you drink this, and you do not eat or drink anything for 25 minutes. And this flushes your liver out. And so your liver's got to be in good shape for anybody ingesting this plant because of the toxins it's pulling out and your liver is processing. So be kind to your liver and do this. I also will do microdosing for people trying to quit smoking. It's going to take 4 days, but if anybody has that urge for a cigarette, or this can be sugar, this can be any addiction, you take 1 capsule in the morning. When you're first starting to microdose, you're kind of micromanaging yourself. I mean, we are all our own doctors, right? Of course, I could probably get a reading from you about microdosing. I don't think we've ever done that because it's not the way I do it. I don't feel it's necessary because I just encourage people to be their own doctor. Take the first dose, see how that goes. The idea with microdosing is to not feel the medicine, okay? You can feel some of the effects slightly, but if you take, some people, 1 capsule is all they need to microdose. That's a ½ gram. So in a treatment, now in a ceremony, you do 14 grams, let's say. In microdosing, I always give someone 20 grams, okay? So a ½ gram, if you do a ½ gram a day, 1 capsule, that's going to be a 40-day microdosing process. And so most people will take 1.5 grams in the morning, and I ask them to take a ½ gram every 1.5 hours or 2 hours. And when you're first starting to use this medicine, I applaud you to try it. Keep taking the ½ gram until you feel it, and then back off the next day, because I don't want people to have this sensation of a little bit of, anyway, and some people do get nausea too. And you don't want that. You want to back off a little bit. The idea of microdosing is to not feel it. You want to be able to do everything you normally do. You're just going to have a little bit more energy and whatnot. So it's up to that individual person, because we're all individual. to really find themselves where that dosage is. And I work with people over the first 3 days and how you feeling, what's going on. But that's how that's how I apply microdosing to people. What was I going to say there? Oh, I do recommend that people do not do breath work while microdosing. You can go too deep. So that's about the only, I had that situation happen with someone a few years ago, and that's the only thing that's ever happened with someone on microdosing, and they just fell a little too deep. But you know, that's some heavy duty work when you're holotropic breathing. So, but I recommend that that's about the only thing I ask them not to do. Yeah, and this is how we do it. Now, if you have something like cancer or whatever your ailment is, and ailments are my specialty, right? There we have drug addiction, we have psychospiritual, and then we have the ailments. And ailments is my favorite. I like them all, but and really you do. So ailments. Let's take cancer for instance. So I would recommend somebody to do the liver cleanse for 3 weeks. Do 20 grams at your own pace. Usually it's 1.5 grams a day. I always recommend that you finish your dosages for the day before 12 o'clock noon, because if you do a microdose after that, it might keep you up at night with this medicine, okay? So everybody's gonna stop their procedure at 12 o'clock that day and have it taken the last dose. And again, the usual is 1.5 grams, which is 3 capsules. Some people do more, some people do less. It's all that we're individuals. But yeah, so if you have an ailment, I'm going to request that you start a treatment with 20 grams and see how that goes. I'm not going to give it, even though that I know that they should have 40 grams. I want them to take the first 20 grams, make sure everything is, you can tell. I just gave this woman 2 weeks ago. I sent her to you. I think her name was Alicia or something like this. She looked amazing. I just saw her a couple of days ago after taking this medicine for 20 days. And she said, she goes, I feel like I'm in college. This woman's 56 years old or something. And I said, you look completely different. And she's like, I feel completely different. I'll take 20 more grams. And so yeah. Some people are a little hesitant and have trepidation about going into a ceremony because it's no joke. This is the Mount Everest of plant medicine, and you need to strap on your boots, and you're climbing Mount Everest. So people that have the, and this is also why when I go into ceremony, I have people that day should be a day in nature. I usually bring in the acupuncturist to open up their channels to receive the medicine better. And then I recommend that they go to the beach or just be in nature, have their cell phone off. You want a very positive day because that day you're going to take into the ceremony, just as you would with microdosing too. You want to have positive days, even though you can work at your desk on microdosing. But the day of the ceremony, so I give an orientation at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon that lasts about an hour, all about Iboga and everything. And then I give the people that are going to ceremony at 6:30. That's about the only thing I do that the Africans do is I use the same medicine and I start my ceremonies with the first star in the sky. It's just the way to take Iboga into ceremony. But to calm the people down, and nobody would ever freak out on Iboga. It's not this way at all. I've never seen anybody have a bad experience. Some people have seen visions that weren't so pleasant, but they needed to see that for the healing. But anyways, I think I'm the only one in the world that does Iboga yoga, okay? And the reason I do this is to calm people down. I also bring in a Reiki master and a masseuse to give these people while they're coming on to the clinical or flood or ceremonial dose. The reason being is to relax them because you should go into this ceremony very relaxed. Anyways, so we do the low dosage, and I usually give 1 gram to everybody, which is because they're going to be doing, and I subtract it from their ceremony dose that they're going to be taking in 1.5 hours from that time we start the yoga. But I give them 1 gram, and then we start the yoga process, and it's the best yoga class you can possibly do. Very focused. And I do all of the asanas or yoga poses are meant to calm you. They're for your digestion. because in a ceremonial dose, your 14 grams is, what is that, 28 capsules. That's a handful of capsules you're taking. And in Africa, they'll give you a spoonful of this and with some honey or whatever. And I just don't do it that way. I do it this way because it's just my style, and you don't have to worry about the taste of it. Some people that have trouble eating this many pills, I'll mix it into a smoothie this way or whatever. But I always keep track of the weight. And in Africa, they don't really do that, but I do, because I do kinesiology on their dosage as well as your recommendations. So this is how I do it, but it's not how everybody does it. Anyways.
So Darin McBratney, plant medicine facilitator, what are some of the reasons a person might prefer to microdose Iboga than to participate in a plant medicine ceremony that you described?
Well, again, I think the biggest reason why people microdosing is because they have a bit of fear and trepidation of the ceremony, which is fine. I'm not going to push anybody into a ceremony who has this. But again, I'm going to tell you that everybody goes into my ceremonies completely relaxed and remains that way. I've never, thousands of people I've done it, I've never had anybody freak out, or I've never had a problem medically either. Anyways, borderline, yes. I learned a lot in the beginning, so yeah, or I disqualify them for heart palpitations, a history of heart disease. I just disqualified a gal this morning because she had done the medicine before and she had heart palpitations. And I said, you know, let's just do microdosing. I don't push the envelope on risk here, you know. So if anybody's at risk, anybody has a liver situation, you know, it's amazing for alcoholism. I just did my last ceremony at my hotel I'm selling, Costa Rica Yoga Spa. And this gentleman I had 6 people, and this guy who came for alcoholism was so healed after the ceremony. He left 2 days before. And I mean, he had this whole itinerary of more healing and massage, but he's just like, I'll never drink again. I'm completely healed, which is amazing. Now, if he was drinking heavily for 3 years, if he had been drinking for 6 years, his liver might be a little bit too damaged to process the toxins in a ceremony, henceforth microdosing. It's also good to recommend to these people that are drinking heavy or have some liver issues to microdose before the ceremony. So you would microdose up until like 3 days, let's say, but I always like that clean 3 days before the ceremony. No liver cleanse, no nothing, just let your body be. Of course, you cannot mix Western medicine, microdosing or whatever. Now, the difference between this medicine and Western medicine is Western medicine is just putting a Band-Aid on you and you're going to carry along. And like some people are taking this medicine forever. Iboga is actually healing you where you don't need to take, it's especially amazing with like thyroid conditions like this, depression, anxiety. It's like every time it's being healed completely. I won't use that word cure, so we're not getting in trouble here, but that's what's happening. So that's the difference, but you cannot mix it too because of the contradictions. It can be very dangerous. The worst enemy of Iboga is Suboxone, I would say, out of all, and benzos, okay? Benzos and Suboxone would be the worst enemy. So even, you know, 70% of Americans and Canadians and probably the rest of the world out there in the Western countries 70% of these countries are on pharmaceuticals. Biggest part of my job, which I won't miss, is looking up these drugs. And the first thing I do is go to their half-life. And then I always double that. So a half-life is how long it takes for that drug to get out of your system. And if it says 5 hours, I'm going to go a day at least. Suboxone, technically, any other facility is going to tell you 3 weeks, right? But usually I'll have the people taper down and they'll come here for like 7 days before their ceremony. I'll microdose them. I will feed them full of nutrients. I will give them some herbal formulas to make their bowels moving, especially, you know, I do a lot with my drug addiction. The biggest problem with opiate addicts is they are constipated. So they need to have their system moving. They need to be cleansed. And so this is with, I use Iboga plus Dr. Schultz Formula One, which is this herbal formula to get in. And I do my drug addiction work in Mexico City, where I have colonics. I have the vitamin bar. So it's a team of doctors and nurses that come in the rooms to, you're basically changing this person's oil, right? Because they're toxic. You know, if there's somebody's doing heroin and eating McDonald's, I don't want to take them into ceremony. I'm going to microdose them. I'm going to clean them out. And then we'll talk about climbing Mount Everest. But you don't take somebody who's unhealthy and go into a ceremony. You do microdoses.
So Darin McBratney, plant medicine facilitator, two questions that I think you may have discussed, but I want to be clear for our audience. What is the right amount for microdosing Iboga, and how long should someone be microdosing?
Okay. Again, we are all individuals. So if someone, if you give me an example, if someone has, let's say Parkinson's. First of all, my friend did an experiment with Iboga and he microdosed for 3 years, missing 3 days. Is it addictive? Absolutely not. But yet it's a Schedule IV drug, and it says it's addicting in the legislation of this drug, which it completely is not. In fact, there's nothing fun about it. It's especially a ceremony that is not recreational whatsoever. That's a lot of hard work. I have a lot of respect for these brave people that come in and participate in my ceremonies. I think you have to be brave to microdose, actually, because what was the question again?
What's the right amount for microdosing, and how long should someone be microdosing for? So you mentioned 20 days.
If someone wants just a cleanse, like, people do these normal cleanses for like spring cleanses and that, 20 grams, okay? And 20 grams could take 12 days to finish, or it could take 20 days, or it could take 40 days. It all depends on the person. And that's that person finding their own adjustment. And that's why I work with them for the first 3 days, okay? And I microdose quite a bit of people. Just got off the phone with one gal, and she's like, I found my number. I went to 4 capsules, which is 2 grams, and that was too much. So I stepped back to 3 capsules, which is a gram and a half, which is the norm, I would say. Which is the norm. And that's going to take her like 15 days, I think, to finish up 1 round. And then it's like, okay, how are you feeling? Was that problem that your intention was to solve, is it fixed? If it's fixed, you don't need more. If it's not fixed, let's go another 20 grams, okay? And if you have something like Parkinson's, I want to keep you on like a half a capsule, maybe even for a year. And I've seen people on Parkinson's that are shaking. They can't even eat their own food. They're really a nervous system wreck when they see me. And by the time I can be with them for a week, and they'll be dancing, okay? So those people have a lot to heal. And it's kind of, I don't want to say it becomes maintenance, because it's actually stopping the disease, but it's also reversing the effects. So Parkinson's people, I would microdose them for 100 days or more. So with great success. And then I'll have them take a break, because their body needs a break. And let's say usually that break is 7 days. In fact, when a person comes to me with an ailment, let's just take cancer, I'll make sure that they do 20 grams and then take a 7-day break and then do 20 more. That's proper. Now, I consider this microdosing a meditation and a cleanse. What does that mean? It means a lot more water than usual, because you want that for your liver. It means that you shouldn't drink alcohol, and you should just consider this a cleanse. No doing drugs, none of this stuff. It's a cleanse, and so respect that. And this is a plant with an intelligence that's far beyond ours. So it also, when someone does a microdose or even a ceremonial dose, you're taking this with intention. And this plant is very dignified, and it likes praises, it likes reverence, okay? So that's very important. This is interesting too, and this is what I know to be true, that's very and again, we're dealing with a supernatural plant. It's not just natural, and I'll give you an example of that. I'll give you an example on a larger scale. I had a couple come a long time ago, and it was just for psycho-spiritual reasons, the experience of it, maybe finding out their sole purpose in life, which this plant is great at giving you. The wife was all about it and had the most intense, most beautiful night of her life. And she got all this information and which it's so good at giving you. Her husband was skeptical, but he was going along for the ride to keep his wife happy. Iboga had him sit and stare at a blank chalkboard for 8 hours. He got nothing out of this ceremony because he didn't give the plant reverence, he didn't give it respect, and he didn't give intention to it. So, and this also is the same, I believe, with microdosing, okay? So you can't just take it and think it's an aspirin, okay? It's not going to do anything for you. It really won't. It just will be like, you know, sorry, I'm just going to go right through you, and that's it. If you take this plant with intention and reverence, my goodness, you're going to be feeling amazing, okay? So that's the difference between Western pharmaceuticals, because those pills don't have a soul. We're dealing with a plant that has a soul, and it's actually more intelligent than we are. So let's give it some respect and watch what it does when you do. But if you don't, sorry, you know, you shouldn't even start it.
So Darin McBratney, plant medicine facilitator, what are the contraindications for those people who should absolutely not be microdosing Iboga?
Okay, the people that are not willing to get off of Western medicine would be my number one contradiction. Not people that are not doing it. The people that don't have good intentions or don't have the intention proper. Generally, it's for everybody. I can't think of too many reasons why I wouldn't recommend this. If someone comes to me, it's because they need help. And I shift the help. I'm not the guy that's going to really help them. I will help them get the help they need by supplying the medicine. But as far as yeah, that's my job as a facilitator. Yeah.
So to be clear, someone shouldn't be taking Prozac, Xanax, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, and doing Iboga.
No, because the things that they're taking that for, whether it be depression, anxiety, or these 360 some diagnoses for psychotic, you know, at the turn of the century, there was, I think, 1 or 2 diagnoses for schizophrenia or whatever, and now there's 300. And so they design a capsule and then they'll design a new diagnosis for you, right? Whether it be ADHD, whatever it is. That's a kid who is just healthy. To me, I was that way, and it's because I saw through the system from a very early age, but I didn't have a disease or a diagnosis that would fit for having a Western medicine. So yeah, that's
so once people are, basically you want people to be off drugs while they're microdosing.
Absolutely. You can't, it can be very dangerous, okay? Even though with a low dose, it can still be very dangerous, especially with Suboxone, especially with benzos. But you won't need these, generally, you will not need these drugs ever again, because we're not putting a Band-Aid on you. We are healing you, okay? Whenever I do a ceremony and someone has a hypo or hyperthyroid or Hashimoto's, I always say, go back to your doctor and check your levels. And they're going to be most likely fixed. Now, here's an interesting story about intention and about the intelligence of this plant. I had 8 gals from Canada come down to, it was like a quit smoking retreat, right? Which is, Iboga is so amazing at. This was when someone quit smoking, this happened to be a ceremony, and then I gave them booster doses in case they ever had the calling to do, what do you call it, the addiction calling at you. And with Iboga, it will come and go real quick, you know, so you still might have it after 4 days. But anyways, So out of those 8 women who did all clinical doses or more, there was one woman in there who was smoking the next morning, and she was like, "What? This is not what I came for." Da da da. And I was like, "I know that she did 15 grams last night. I know something's going to happen. I'm just going to wait, right?" So by noon the next day, she said, "Well, that." I said, "How you doing?" Her name was Valerie, and I said, "How are you doing, Valerie?" She goes, "Well, that was interesting." I said, "What?" And she said, "Well, that lump in my breast isn't there anymore." Okay. So this plant was, now her intention was to quit smoking, but this plant was superior in intelligence. And, you know, this is a plant that's, it's not a silver bullet, it's a stepping stone. And it can only do so much, right? I've seen it do miraculous things. I've seen it clear up severe cases of varicose veins overnight, rashes, skin conditions cleared overnight. One guy had a sprained ankle that was this big that didn't exist in the morning. He was on crutches into the ceremony. So it is smarter than us in the fact that it's going to go to what your body really needs, what the priorities really are. And that priority was probably this cancerous tumor that was forming in her breast, not the smoking thing. If she would do the microdoses that I gave her afterwards, got her to quit smoking. It took another 4 days, right? So another example of how this plant is smarter than we are, right?
So Darin McBratney, what are the benefits for microdosing Iboga?
Well, you feel great, you look great, and the intention that you're going for, which for a lot of people, it's to quit doing these pharmaceuticals, because these pharmaceuticals are basically designed not to get off of. If you take a person on heroin for 1 year and you take the heroin away, they're going to be kicking, scratching, and purging for 3 days, okay? And it's a miserable thing to see. With Iboga, they have about 75% of those symptoms go away, so it's much easier. But if you put someone on Suboxone for a year and you take that Suboxone away, 6 months later, they're still having psychotic episodes, you see? So you taper someone off of these drugs, you put them on the Iboga for however long it takes, but they won't need to go back to these horrible design drugs. That's the big plus of microdosing. The other ones are it can help you quit drinking coffee, or just keep you in a positive way, and it works on all levels of your being, whether it be physical and mental. It's not just one or the other; it's both.
What are the legalities about microdosing Iboga? Is it legal to microdose, and where is it illegal to microdose?
Iboga is only illegal in 14 countries. And interestingly enough, these are the countries that have the big pharma strongholds, right? The United States, France, but other countries like New Zealand were totally legal. I used to live in New Zealand. It's a great country. And in Costa Rica too. It's not legal or illegal here. I am working with the Ministry of Agriculture to grow Iboga here, both legally and organically certified. And the head Minister of Agriculture is so interested, he wants to grow it himself. I recently, there's a film director who filmed the Reality of Truth, which is about ayahuasca. He just recently filmed another movie. Oh gosh, it's on LeBron James, who just did Ibogaine, and he just did what was the other one he did? Anyways, that movie director and his partner just got me a job with the Jamaican government. I'm going over there to instruct them how to grow Iboga on a 50 hectare parcel. And then they're going to build a few clinics using my technique, the Global Nurture Project, which is pretty unique. And you're my shaman. You're going to be the shaman for Jamaica here pretty soon. But they've said they missed the boat on marijuana. They missed the boat on psilocybin, but we're not going to miss the boat on Iboga. So I'm very happy about that opportunity. I think it's going to open doors to other countries as well. What countries is this illegal? It's in a gray area in a lot of other countries too. But anyways, I hope that changes. It's legal in Berkeley or Oakland, California now. I think there's a couple clinics there, if I'm not mistaken. There's clinics in Canada. but there's like 3 or 4 of us here in Costa Rica. I think the bulk of clinics are in Mexico. These are mostly clinics for addiction, and they use Ibogaine. However, I think there's some that might use root bark. Yeah. Anyways, my goal in the future is this plant is going extinct. Okay, mostly due to the opiate crisis. You have hundreds of thousands of people on this drug, and so they're finding out the incredible healing effects of over addiction with this plant. Therefore, it's being plucked out of the jungle at a disturbing rate. And me as a facilitator, I started getting substandard product. I started getting, and I mean, I'm not the only one. So I got told even at a conference, I think it was in 2014, 16, that was in Mexico, that, hey, there's not going to be any Iboga in 2020. Well, they're almost right. Okay. So I am shutting down and recommending Shambhala retreats. Are on my website or whatever, but my intention is to grow this plant. I sent some people to Africa, to different farms in Cameroon, because in Gabon it's illegal to export now because of the shortage they were having there. Even the own people that carry on the tradition of Bwiti, when they're not having enough Iboga to do these ceremonies. Anyway, so the first thing we test is the Ibogaine level in the plant, so I found this plantation with a very high Ibogaine content in the plant. I got the fruit pods. This plant produces a fruit that's not edible, but it's a cool little fruit that has about 20 to 25 seeds in it. And I'm growing this plant that I know to be quality. And it's going to take 5 to 6 years for this plant to mature to be able to use the medicine. So I hope we have enough to sustain us until then, but I do have quite a few plants growing right now as well in different places.
So Darin McBratney, since Iboga is a native plant to Gabon and West Africa, and it's part of the Bwiti tradition, do people in West Africa microdose?
Catherine, I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. That's a great question. I haven't been there. I sent Daniel Brett there to do all of his research. I think he would be the one to ask the next time you have a podcast with him. I'm certain some people do. I'll tell you what now I just had a naturopathic veterinarian here that wants to use Iboga on animals. I myself have used Iboga on horses, on birds, on monkeys, on dogs for Ehrlichia, the tick disease, and it works amazing with animals. And I think at this one ceremony that Daniel Brett has, the people gave the dogs some Iboga during the ceremony as well. But God bless her, because she's going to start doing research on microdosing with animals and healing them of different things, because it works on them too. I've done a lot of experimentation using this topically. I know that if someone made a cream out of it, I have a gal here in town that can do this. It's amazing for inflammation, both internally and externally. Okay. But otherwise it's good just to take internally. I don't know that. I don't know that. I'm sure that people do. I don't know, Catherine.
So Darin McBratney, you've been doing plant medicine ceremonies with Iboga for the past 12 years. And then you mentioned that your new mission is to grow Iboga both in Costa Rica and in Jamaica, so that this powerful plant medicine can be available. If people want to learn more about how to grow Iboga, where can they get good information?
Well, that's a great question. Apparently, I'm the only person in the world who's written a grow packet on how to grow Iboga. Okay. And, I'm not an expert level. I talked to and learned with some people in Ghana that I've really worked with extensively on Iboga farming. I feel like I know a lot, but I will know a lot more in the next year, as I'm really working with a lot of people that are getting into this growing in many different countries. Okay. So, I can't remember what your question was.
And if someone wanted
the grow packet is available on ibogatherapy.com. Also, too, this is quite interesting. The reason why it's going extinct in Africa is because a lot of plantations and a lot of people who poach it. Now in Africa too, we got the elephants love it, so it grows along elephant paths. So the poachers are pulling this stuff out of the ground. Now, it was amazing to have you here because I was like, why do we need to pull this plant out of the ground at 6 years? This is a plant that will grow. Nobody really knows how long it will grow. The best, there's 8 books that are only written in French on Iboga. And Elena, who you know that works with me, she read them all. She's Russian, but she lived in Paris for 30 years. There was a guy that found an Iboga tree in the Congo that was 30 to 50 feet tall and probably 300 years old. Imagine the medicine on that. So my biggest question when I talked to you was like, why do we have to pick this plant out of the ground and it's just gone? How do we harvest this plant sustainably? And I had an idea, I had an inkling to this. By the way, you also cannot clone this plant. You can clone it in ceremony for the essence of this plant, but you cannot clone it. And anybody who knows about the doctrine of signatures, the seed of this plant looks exactly like your brain, right? So it's good for your brain. Getting back to harvesting it. So I asked the plant, how do I harvest you sustainably? And you came back speaking for the plant and said you can harvest, it's like 10 to 20% of the root a year, right? That way this plant can live forever. One plant after 6 years will produce 500 grams. So 10% of that, what is that, 50 grams? So this is what I'm going to do with all my plantations, and this is what I'm preaching and teaching. So once you plant this plant, it's there for life. It's going to be there when I die. It's going to be there for your kids because they're only harvesting no more than 20% of this plant. So that's being sustainable, right? This is why it's going extinct, because it's not being harvested this way. So I think I'm on to something.
Yes. You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. We've been listening to Darin McBratney, plant medicine facilitator, and you can find out more about Darin McBratney and his life-changing and life-saving work at his website, ibogatherapy.com. And remember, there are very powerful remedies available in natural healing. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening.